Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Nick D'Onofrio. I'd like to welcome you to the Beckman Center. I'd also like to welcome you to this amazing piece of work we're doing called Making Value for America, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But the first thing I'd like to do is to bring to the podium and have you welcome the president of the National Academy of Engineering, Dan Mote. Dan?
Well, Nick, thank you for that very efficient introduction. It's cutting down the time on this, definitely, which is a good idea, by the way. I hope I don't waste your time at the same time.
I'm an engineer, Dan. You gotta remember that.
I know. Keep cranking. Absolutely. Well, at the risk of sounding too trite, I would say that we're at an important juncture as a nation, and really, thanks to so many steady technological advances that we all know about well, additive manufacturing, autonomous vehicles, smart products, and so forth, all the things we know very well, there's a steadily expanding opportunities to create products, services, and processes that will be enormously valuable and accessible to serving people in society, essentially everywhere. So capabilities, consumer markets, opportunities are all fueling expansion of each other. It's a kind of a feedback system that is growing very rapidly. And of course, you know well, there are deep concerns that these innovations will not create the number and quality of jobs needed for American workforce, at least not jobs associated with or in manufacturing. 200 years ago, 1811 to 1813, the Luddites, as you know, revolted against textile looms in England because of the loss of jobs created by technological advancement. The British Parliament actually made machine breaking a capital crime, a discouragement for some, no doubt, at least those who were caught. But more British soldiers were fighting Luddites than the French in the Iberian Peninsula. However, it's vital for everyone today, and I think everyone here already knows, to understand that the global realities of the 21st century, what I call the context of our time, and need to understand the chart of path forward to prosper within it rather than fight against it. It's so much easier to swim downstream, actually, to swim upstream. You can only swim upstream for a while before it ultimately sweeps you away, dead or alive. So the context of our time calls for accelerating innovation and creating products and services of value to people. By doing so, our economy will grow and create high-quality, high-paying jobs across the workforce, though not in manufacturing of old. After all, we're not trying to recreate the past. I mean, are we? Has it ever worked, by the way? It'd be good to try to think of some examples where it's actually worked. In 1950, 42% of U.S. employment was in services, and 29% was in manufacturing. In 2011, 69% of U.S. employment was in services, and 9% was in manufacturing. Moreover, the percentage of employment in both these sectors changed in a monotonically linear manner for 60 years, leading to an increase of 27% in services and a decrease of 20% in manufacturing. Linearly, like straight as an arrow, for 60 years. This 60-year linear transitions frame the context of our time, and no changes in their second derivatives are yet apparent. These transitions are not caused by politics, climate change, immigration policy, internet, recessions. There's no simple or simplistic single trigger that anyone can pull to change this reality. Think of all the disruptive changes that have occurred since 1950, and none has caused a blip. None has caused a blip in these linear transitions. So I expect you agree that there's a message in these data. The path forward within the context of our time, oh, by the way, if we look at agriculture, you'll see much the same thing till it hit an asymptote at about 2 to 3%, where it's kind of flopping around at the moment. But that asymptote has not appeared yet on either of these other transitions. Basically, 7 to 10 jobs are in services, and almost 1 in 10 jobs are in manufacturing. That's the US. So the path forward, really, is to innovate products and produce services and products that really have high value to people at home and abroad. Building enterprises to innovate and produce and deliver these products and services will create jobs, industries, economic activity, and opportunities for Americans. It's actually the only way forward. In August of 2013, last year, the Academy formed a committee to examine the condition of the innovation, design, manufacturing services value chain in the United States and identify best practices around it for value creation for people and society. The fundamental goal of engineering, value for people and society. The committee has held meetings and examined business case studies across diverse industries and economics research on workforce trends and business practices in the United States and other countries. This conference today is really critical because it will inform the committee's recommendations that will be published later this year. Our hope is that the committee's council will inspire, guide, and enable more people and companies within the U.S. to think broadly about making value through successfully creating and delivering products and services in a supply chain that is an economically viable attractor of people at home and abroad. I hope that this will also help us move away from the long dead past of manufacturing that is not coming back. The focus of making value is a kind of holistic view of the true worth obtained by creating solutions, which is what engineering does. Making value requires thinking beyond the things that most of us speak about when we say what engineers do. Making value is at the core of the value proposition for engineering, creating solutions serving the welfare of humanity and the needs of society. Think of it this way. Let's say that making things solution is to grow or create trees. So if your making value proposition is to create trees, well, then your making things solution is succeeded, QED. However, if your making value proposition includes other valued outcomes, like, for instance, creating jobs for foresters, suppliers, sales, construction, etc., then the making value solution may require ensuring an integrated forest products enterprise in addition to creating trees. No enterprise, no value solution. Making value often requires an engineering system solution, not an engineering device solution. So this making value NRC study, in my experience, is the only NRC study I've ever seen that I can recall, at least, that aligns the value proposition of engineering with the study. NRC studies normally address an aspect of the value proposition, like growing trees, where the greater economic viability may be actually the core interest. I'm hoping that the reports and publications from this study use the opportunity to highlight the value of engineering as creating solutions for humanity and society that are of high value to them. The public needs to see that this nexus between engineering serving people and society is what engineering is all about, which they currently do not. So this type of creation, is the idea of creating solutions, is really for everyone. There's a tendency to think that engineers do engineering and scientists do science and so on, but that is far from correct. The subjects are sharply defined, but the people are self-identified. For instance, members elected to the Academy are collected by what they have done, not by what they call themselves. At least 25% of NAE members have no degrees in engineering, some have no degrees at all, and many do not describe themselves as engineers either. The NAE is an academy of engineering, not an academy of engineers. So we need to ensure that more people in the US want to and are able to and appreciate making value. So value creation goals have implications for education, of course. The STEM education is an important ingredient, no doubt about it. We need to inspire and impart innovative skills and to celebrate creations through the workforce for everyone, production workers, designers, and others. Everyone should be welcomed into the tent. We need visionaries to create new processes for novel products. You know, engineering is very close to art, as a matter of fact. Both are creative enterprises, both create solutions for people and society. Engineering has more tools to work with, analytical, technological, scientific, and so forth, informational, but the great engineers and the great artists are both extraordinary creators and visionaries, and both use their tools with great skill. Where the essence of engineering is creating solutions, the essence of science is creating understanding. These essences are not similar. Their intersection is actually a null set. As a thought to ponder, 200 years ago, Jacob Bigelow pointed out that engineering is closer to art than it is to science in the first course on technology taught at Harvard. His works are very close to the words of Lincoln when founding the NAS. It's not a new idea. A lifelong education plan is essential to adopting continuously to the changing technological landscape. Ensuring this outcome is talked about and often and remains largely unaddressed, and in my view is a serious national problem. How to recreate and re-educate people for the current circumstance. Value creation goals have, of course, very important implications to business as well. What practices are manufacturers and other businesses using to adapt to the accelerating changes in technologies, partnerships, and the nature of work in their industries globally? What employer practices could better enable and even facilitate value creation within their workforces? What are the win-win opportunities for businesses and employers to encourage more entrepreneurship within their workforce or their units? Value creation goals have implications for the infrastructure enablers of a more effective environment for value creation, which has been supported by government forever. As the U.S. was transitioning from an agricultural economy to an industrialized economy, many states instituted mandatory high school education, which was a novel and elite idea at the time. And Congress invested in land-grant colleges with the Morrill Act in 1862. Both were created to support economic development, by the way, of the states as their primary goals, not necessarily educating the workforce. Education was a pathway to the solution, economic development. The Bayh-Dole Act of 1980 allowed universities, small businesses, nonprofits to pursue ownership of their invention created under federal grants. It was intended to be an infrastructure enabler following the economic malaise of the 1970s. I don't know if it's more an enabler now than a hindrance, by the way. That's a question for consideration. What might be the infrastructure, then, education and business practices, enablers at this time that would promote value creation in today's context? That would be a very important, interesting topic for this committee to consider. So I thank you all for your efforts and put forward in this conference, and I truly look forward to your advice and counsel for the nation. As we said to start with, this is a critical and most timely matter for our country to consider. Thank you very much in advance for your work.
Thank you.